What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here for just a couple minutes of your day. I appreciate you guys. So this is my top 10 favorite books of the year so far. This year, I've read 78 books currently, which has been kind of insane, honestly. I wasn't expecting to read so many books. Granted, I've read a lot of manga as well, so that really accumulates to the books I've read this year. I've just been really grinding on reading. There's times where I will either, like, after I get done doing like everything at work, I have like 2 hours before I go to bed, and I'll just sit outside and read the whole time. And I realize it's just so much better that way. Like, I've been really grinding with my reading, so I'm really happy with this result. And I've been reading a lot of smaller books too. Like, I'm reading these big chunkers of the Wheel of Time and the Stormlight Archive, but in between I'm reading 300-page books, which feels like it's just like it takes like a day to read these because you're so used to reading these big, thick books, which is really, really nice, honestly. So we're gonna go from my least favorite to my favorite. This list, I actually sat back and like looked at like books this year. I am not too impressed with these books. Like, some of these books I'm like, oh yeah. Other ones I'm like, I didn't really like this one, but I like this one more than like this one. So I'm like, oh. So it's kind of a weak favorite books. I'm hoping the second half of the year gets better. There's a lot of books I want to read this year, so I'm hoping it changes. Now, my one rule on this is I cannot have any rereads, do not count, and I can't have more than one author, which is perfect because that's how it is. The only author I would have on here twice is Ray Bradbury, so that's a spoiler for one of his books is on this list. I only read 2 of them, so you guys can guess if you want later. I'm not going to show any of the books, I'm just going to have a picture of them for ahead of time, but let's get into this. So the first one on the list is War of the Worlds. Now I'm going to tell you, I did not expect this book to be pretty good, but oh man, this book was a banger. It was a lot different than the movie was, that's for sure. I watched the one with Tom Cruise in it, so I didn't expect it. I actually thought, oh, it's going to be kind of like this. No, not at all. But the book was different because you got to just see the lens through the main character through the whole book, and you don't know the main character's name, which was even more interesting because it made it feel like you were in his shoes through the whole book, and I really actually enjoyed it. It was just a fun read that I didn't expect to actually like. It's just one of those classics I just want to get out of the way. And this was a fun book. So number 9 on the list is Practice Makes Perfect. This is one of the books I read in February. So I try to read romance at least once a year during February. I think what I'm going to try and do, and I've been doing that a lot more with genres in general, is just trying to read them not for 1 month. Like spooky books, I'm trying to read spooky books throughout the year regardless. And I want to do the same thing with romance as well, because I actually like romance. I'm not like advocate of just reading strictly romance. I do enjoy it. Same thing as I like with horror. I actually love horror. Like, horror is probably my favorite genre. It's the weakest on YouTube, so I don't really stay just doing horror content. I like to do everything in general. Practice Makes Perfect is number 9 on the list. I actually really like Practice Makes Perfect. Out of all the books I read for just February alone, Practice Makes Perfect I read in like a day because it was just so fast paced, and there were so many like scenes that actually made me laugh out loud, which I wasn't expecting to actually laugh. But oh man, if you guys ever read this book and you get to like the baseball scene, you will know. But I really actually enjoyed Practice Makes Perfect. I wasn't expecting to go in there and liking it because I thought the plot of it was kind of like, all right. All it is just this bodyguard is gonna train, I guess, this girl to be really good on dates, and that's it. So I really did enjoy this book. I think it was really fun. Just didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but it was really fun. This is a review I did earlier, and a lot of people, I got some comments where a lot of people didn't agree with me. That's fine. It is in my top 10 favorites of the year so far, and it shows that I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars because I just felt like it was really weak compared to the other 2. The books I've read this year, oh man, a lot of them were just kind of weak. Especially because like I don't have any Wheel of Time books on here yet because I read The Slog and that was rough. Now Lord Chaos was this year. Oh man, Lord Chaos would have been banger. Anyways, doesn't matter. Number 8 on the list is Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. Now Oathbringer was rough, because there was parts in Oathbringer that I'm like, why are we doing this? And then there's Dalinar's backstory just was not fulfilling. I want the sauce. And Brandon Sanderson did not bring the sauce. Instead, he gave me Dalinar's not sauce backstory. Like there was some aspects where I'm like, wow, this is really good. But then there was parts where he was just too much of an edgelord, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I can rant about it. I already made a review of it. You guys can go watch that review if you want. Yeah, Oathbringers were 8 on this. So I'm hoping for the rest of the year I'm reading Rhythm of War and then Winds of Truth, I think is the 5th book. Hopefully Rhythm of War is good. I hear it's the worst of the 4. So I'm not looking forward to that one. So hopefully Winds of Truth is good, and that will be in my top 10 at the end of this year. We'll see. Number 7 on the list is from an author that I really like. And I feel like he's just not really popular on BookTube, but I'm going to keep reading him and keep reviewing his books because I personally like him. And that is Mr. Murder by Dean Koontz. Now, Dean Koontz is becoming like one of my favorite authors, without a doubt. Every book I've read from him has just been so good, and I've just been enjoying it. I think the weakest one that I did read is called Visions, which was like 160 pages, so maybe that's why. But Mr. Murder was really good. It's basically like a double life, but it's also with like spies where they create humans, like enhanced humans that are strictly to do like assassinations and stuff. And this human that is trained to kill people actually wants to like live a life. He starts messing with another man. It's really good. It's right off the rip that they meet, and I'm like, wow. Dean Koontz is just a really good writer. He's very good at writing thrillers and fast-paced novels. So if you guys ever want to get into some Dean Koontz, Mr. Murder is really good. The number 6 on the list is not a rare read. I watched the anime growing up as a kid, and I watched it last year. I have it tattooed on my leg now, but that is Sailor Moon. I had a blast reading Sailor Moon back in February. I never read Sailor Moon. I just watched the anime. Usually the anime and the manga are pretty close alike. So I was like, whatever. I already know what's going on. Screw it. But oh man, Sailor Moon is a blast. Like, if you guys want to know like a good romantic manga with some action in it, Sailor Moon's perfect for it. It has everything. I love it. Usagi is such a good main character in general, but I really did enjoy Sailor Moon. So now we are in the top 5. Now the top 5 wasn't too hard of a pick for me. It really wasn't, surprisingly. I expected it was, but not really. Now this one came out of nowhere because I did a poll list and you guys actually picked this book, so thank you for that. And number 5 is Neverwhere. Neverwhere is actually pretty fun. It's very gothic aesthetic, and I really like it. Someone who is gothic. Clearly, you can tell from my backdrops there's a hand that's holding like a heart. Anyway, that's Berserk. And then you got my all-time favorite horror movie behind me. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, though, in general, though, I really like Neverwhere. I think the plot of Neverwhere is good. I think the only thing, now I'm thinking back on it, I just think Richard as the main character was kind of weak, and I just did not enjoy it as much as I was hoping with Richard. It didn't ruin the book for me. So number 4 is Something Wicked This Way Comes, which just blew me out of the water. I didn't expect this book to be so good, but it was. I read this book in, I think, a day and a half, but like 4 hours maybe, because this book was so good. I sat outside on my porch and just read it, and I just page turner. And the way that Ray Bradbury writes is just so weird, but I love it. I love the way that he writes his books, because it's just like how he uses words and stuff. You're like, what the hell is going on here? But then at the same time, you're like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I don't know, just me, I really enjoyed Something Wicked This Way Comes, and it's clearly in my top 10. Will it be in my top 10 at the end of the year? I hope so. I think it could be. Number 3 is another romance. Surprisingly on this list, 3 of the 10 books are romance. Interesting. It's either A, shows that the rest of the books I've been reading this year I've just been weak, or romance just been killing it for me. Who knows? But this one reminds me of Schitt's Creek a lot, and that is called It Happened One Summer. Now, it reminds me of Alexa from Schitt's Creek. The main character in the book is a lot like Alexa, which is really fun because I really like Schitt's Creek. But with this book, yeah, this book's really good. And you get to be through the POV of the man. Now, to me, I think the way that the author wrote the man through this is really good. The way that he like deals with his issues and everything, I'm like, this is what a lot of men actually endure doing. And I like the idea that's how she wrote him as a character. It was really relatable. So this is not my number 1. This is number 2. And I picked it as number 2 because it's not finished yet. But oh man, how it ends off, you're just like, oh, damn. And I actually have it tattooed on my leg as well. And that is Berserk. I read the last arc of Berserk this year. And oh man, it was so good. There was so many moments in it I was like, yes. It was just amazing. And the story of just seeing how Guts progresses as a character is just so good, and I love it. Berserk is easily one of my favorite series of all time. Like Berserk, I didn't expect Berserk to be this popular or how much impact it has on my life, but oh my gosh, it's so good. Just Guts as a character is amazing. Guts is easily one of my favorite characters of all time. I might do a list of my favorite like fictional characters or something. Maybe I'll do that eventually. Of my top 10 favorite like characters in books of all time. I might do that. That'd be really fun. Most of them might be anime characters, so that might be interesting. Berserk was phenomenal. I was mind blown of how good Berserk was. And the art is peak, okay? That's all I gotta tell you, it's peak. Last but not least, the number 1 book so far that has been my favorite, which blew me out of the water. Just saying. I read this book in one day because I was like, this book is good. Granted, it's like 160 pages. The print is pretty big, so maybe that was another reason. But this is actually this is a franchise now for movies that I actually wanted to watch in October. And that is Hellbound Heart, aka Hellraiser. This book was really, really good. And I like the core concept of just the way that Clive Barker wrote this book, and about like the base of the horror is like lust and the fantasy and greed. He just embodied all that into these characters. It was so good, and just the body horror and everything. I was just like mesmerized. And it was only like 160 pages with this book. I was like, this book is so good. So then I immediately went and bought Weave World. I actually went to a used bookstore and bought Weave World after I finished Hellbound Heart, because I was like, Hellbound Heart's really good. And I found Weave World, which is like one of his more popular books. And I was like, yeah. So I'm going to try and read Weave World this year too, because, oh my gosh, Hellbound Heart is so good. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't stop reading it because I was like, oh my gosh, I was just, I don't even know how to explain it. I just really like this book. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all my socials down below. Let me know what is your guys' favorite books of the year so far. Is any of these books that I've read this year were also your favorites? Or is my list just terrible? Or maybe I should reorganize them? Who knows? Whatever you guys say, that's cool. But of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay hungry, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.